Welcome to my channel, everybody, and welcome to my podcast called A Chat with Brand, where we discuss important topics and hold discussions about events that are current today. In this podcast, we're going to be going over human trafficking, more specifically, human trafficking stories, and go into great detail about the stories and human trafficking as a whole, as well as modern day slavery and some of the issues that stem from that. And today, I have a guest speaker with me on this podcast. We have Miss Brenda Terrell-Walker, a facts educator in the elementary setting, previous educator of the year, and Mrs. Terrell-Walker volunteers her time with community service organization. I just wanted to say thank you for joining this podcast and helping me do this assignment today.
You're welcome, Brandon. You're welcome.
And first, I just want to start with a short story. So let me see if I can just share my screen for you. And boom, boom, boom. Can you see?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I'm just gonna read the first part. Human trafficking victims speak out about the horrors of forced labor, and this was in Baltimore on just not too long ago, a couple months ago.
Mm.
I'm just gonna read off of it. A crime hidden in plain sight. Human trafficking comes in many forms, trading a human for forced labor, sexual slavery, and exploitation, and anyone can be a victim. Wednesday is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and one local survivor shares her story about the trauma that happened to her at such a young age. So this is just a story, like they said, about a young person
Yeah.
in Baltimore. So, and it's reality that occurs across the nation. Yeah, human trafficking is a huge problem in America, well, globally, but specifically in America. Specifically in this podcast, we're going to talk about Maryland, that hits home for me since I'm a Morgan State student. And um, Mr. Walker, do you care to tell about your experience about Maryland, how you're connected to it?
Oh, sure. I am a graduate of the University of Maryland, College Park. I graduated in 1991, dating myself. Um, and so I am familiar uh, with, that um, area of Maryland, College Park. Um, when during my schooling and things like that. I didn't have a car, but I definitely took like public transportation and um, PG County and Greenbelt area and things like that. So just that immediate surrounding area and some places in Baltimore also there were outings going to the harbor and things like that. So I just familiar with Maryland or the Maryland area, as a former college graduate.
So Baltimore is basically in your backyard, a yard, correct? Since you went to College Park and University of Maryland.
Oh yeah, correct.
So
Yeah,
in this case, the child said she was sex trafficked at the age of 12 to 15, and to me that sounds absolutely absurd, being that young and exposed to it.
correct. Yeah, it's it's alarming. The prevalence of human trafficking in America. Um, it's very alarming, and I think some of the data that is um, available, like um, about, I guess, with the National Center. Let's say I know as an educator, like National Center for on Safe Supportive Learning Environments. Some of the things, the data that they have, is that it impacts um, let's say on their national human trafficking hotline, right? some of the data that they had, that a majority of those calls that they would get from the hotline are, young people or young persons under the age of 18. And so it has a profound, effect on young people. And we really, absolutely have to be aware and alert to that, and how we keep not only our children safe, but also obviously adults as well.
Yep, like this person in this case, she started off young. What she said? She said age started when she was 12. Started that's insane, but
Yeah, that's like 12. What is it? That is sixth grade. Yeah, upper elementary. Yeah, that's alarming. It's alarming. What did go? And this was recent. This was recently.
yes, January.
Wow.
So, well, a couple months ago, and I just want to read. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I'll link the whole article to people that are watching. I'll link it on this description of the YouTube video. But
Okay.
yeah, it was just going into detail how it's not it's more than just sex when it comes to human trafficking, and it's more like abuse. So what are your thoughts on like abusing the victims?
Horrible. That's terrible. No, no one, should have to go through that type of trauma. Um, because again, if you, as defined according to federal law, human trafficking is, the exploitation of a person through force, right, or coercion, for the purpose of forced labor, commercial sex, or both. And it is, victimization, you know, um, and it's unsettling, and it's no person in society should, be subject to that. No community, school, socioeconomic group, or student, or demographic, or people, you know, is not immune to it, sadly, and it's found, when you just talk about, you asked about, you, because you led with an article about a young person that was 12 years old, that cases of child trafficking is found in every area of the country, whether it's rural, suburban, or urban settings alike. And it's a terrible, terrible, terrible crime. And we, as and citizens of our community, of our country, here in America, we need to be more informed or aware of really what a big problem this is, and that it is a challenge for our communities, and we need to recognize it, to help address it. I don't know if I
Mm,
answered your question, but
I don't know. We're just having a dialogue, yeah.
yeah,
And speaking of more specifically Maryland, I just want to go into more detail about the human trafficking. I don't know if you can see. Can you see this?
I see. Uh,
Or does it need to be
oh, oh, wow.
bigger? So,
Yeah, I see. So the dark blue, that's Washington, D.C. And what
you
is
know,
that? What is that percentage there? Oh my goodness.
so
Yeah.
Maryland is 2.21. So you're two times more likely to get involved in a human trafficking case.
Situation. Yeah.
Yep,
Wow.
and in DC, let me move this. DC is at 6.08, so you're six times more likely. And DC's in Maryland's backyard, basically, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's unsettling. It's it's a societal ill that we have to address because, there are long-term impacts on the victims of human trafficking, that is not just physical, but also psychological abuse, right? That can lead to, other emotional health issues. Um, and then, again, just the post trauma effect of human trafficking, right? Has, lasting impacts and, like you want people in society to be healthy, right? To be whole. And for us to, as, you know, living in America, you want, not to turn a blind eye if somebody is in need of help, to be able to help them. And Human trafficking is just one of the most complex types of trauma that somebody could ever, experience and could have a lasting impact. It's just very real. I don't know, my mind is going different places with this conversation, but just, looking at that and, why is, you know, certain areas, I mean, like I said, human trafficking reaches every area, whether it's in an urban environment, suburban, rural. I mean, it touches every place in America. Um, but how do you prevent it? What is happening that individuals could be vulnerable to human trafficking, to become a victim. That is, how do we that and then my brain, my mind is thinking, how do you keep yourself safe, right? Like
Mm,
you said, that's in Washington DC. That's an area that people travel to, tourism, and things like that. To people traveling with their family, you got to be ever vigilant, right? um just to keep yourself safe, because if I see numbers like that, it's going to put me on high alert, to be more aware. How can I be safe, keep my family safe and secure? Um, because that is just a reality. That's what was that data again? Like what was it again?
I believe it's 2.21 for Maryland and 6.08 for District.
Yeah,
And you can see the top 10 states of the highest rates of human trafficking is DC. This is the
yeah,
second highest,
yeah.
not just on the Eastern Hemisphere, but the whole country of.
Of In the country. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's alarming. It may not, I mean, in my voice, but it's, there's just no words for it. It's, yeah,
So in let's look more specifically at the statistics of Maryland. This is 2021. I tried to find something more recent, but this is recent as I can get, so I apologize for
sure.
that. But Maryland, they sent about 751 signals and 279 coming from victims and human trafficking survivors. That's survivors only.
Yeah.
People trying to get help. So I found that surprising that only maybe 2/7 of the
Mm.
whole signals that were sent were survivors.
Mm-hmm. Because I guess they look at that data and, like when something, and because that's like a traumatic experience, and like, what do you do? Like, you know, and I think some of the data that's out there, a lot of the victims will reach out to a hotline, a human trafficking hotline for support and help. And maybe, some of those cases, like you said, there could be thousands of cases, but you know or I don't know, and then some things that go unreported, right? So it's the survivors of it, it's because it's a horrible, horrible event. And like you said, the survivors, those that, are able to um, find the strength, to say that this is what has happened to them, so that they could get help and maybe help someone else, you know, um, to really, take that tragedy and turn it into something that could be life-saving, not only for themselves, but for someone else, you know. Um, but yeah, that's really tough. That number is, yeah.
So the cases they have 118 cases and 173 victims, and I want to show you this because the prevalence of trafficking
Mm-hmm.
is indicating that 100 female victims compared to 12 males, and that is absolutely unbalanced.
Hmm.
So I just want to know about how you feel about victims being more prevalent, like female victims being more prevalent than males.
Right, right. You as a woman, you know, you have to empower yourself, um, to, well, if first of all, humanity, if we just think of humanity, whether it's a woman or man, you always have to keep yourself safe, and um, that the information that you're sharing, that women, it looks like women are more likely to be subjected to human trafficking. um, it puts you on alert. It puts you on not just alert, it puts you on high alert. Like, what do you need to keep yourself safe? What do you need to do, to to um I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
like keep yourself protected so you don't fall victim to.
correct, correct. Like you asked me, um about what, my, I guess, where I went to college, and as a former college student, being going away from home for the first time, and being on a university campus that you're not familiar with, lots of people, and you want to make common sense decisions as it regards to your safety, right? Being at a university, or going to, the harbor in Baltimore, or going to, um, or taking a tour in Washington, D.C., or what have you, just being a part of, being a part of the culture and experience and things like that. But you have to maintain your sense of personal safety, in public, like in a public area. As a student, I had to know my environment. I had to know, how to either walk with a classmate or friend, on a certain time of day or night. I would not walk by myself. Make sure I had my cell phone, walk in lighted areas. Do men do that? Absolutely. As a woman, you just want to protect yourself.
So yeah, you were talking about the human trafficking and personal experience. I know when I talk to my friends that happen to be female, they don't like going out at night, like going out to the store, and it really hit home for me because I can just walk down the street and go to CVS, and then
Hmm.
some females are just like, they told me, they're like, I'm not doing that. I need someone to either walk with me or I need to be with a friend. So
Right.
from a
I
male
agree.
perspective, it's kind of like, wow, like some women can't just go alone. They feel uncomfortable.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Because you want to keep yourself safe, um, reduce the reduce the chances of becoming a victim. It doesn't mean you have to, go about your daily life in fear, of going outside. But, with nighttime, you have predators, you have people out there that could be, wanting to cause harm, and you don't want to put yourself in harm's way of a situation that, you know, could impact you in such a negative way, such as, human trafficking and things like that. So you want to make smart decisions, right? You want to keep yourself safe. You want to, um, uh, reduce the chances of, um, you being in a vulnerable situation, right? Walk with a friend, take a shuttle. If your campus has a shuttle service, take that, but don't walk around at night alone, just be aware of your surroundings, and try to put yourself in the best situation that won't compromise your safety, and, call the police, right? For help, or if there's a like an escort service that your campus may have or something like that, if you have to, go out by yourself, but you got to make smart decisions, because unfortunately with human trafficking, it is that situation, where someone is intentionally targeting you for a purpose, or that would cause harm, right?
Yeah, it's kind of scary knowing. Let me just show you another uh
Hmm.
statistic if I can find it. Oh, okay. Here it is. I don't know. Let me zoom in for you.
Hmm.
So, approximately a quarter of the world's. I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, but it's a quarter of the world's population, 2 billion people living in conflict areas. Just basically saying because of COVID and war conflicts and
Hmm.
additional crises,
Yeah,
some people are more weak and more like easier to take, right?
right. It's the vulnerability. Hmm.
Yeah, and this is really shocking to me when I first found this out that women and girls represent 65% of all trafficking victims globally, not just in Maryland, not just in the state, in the
Yeah,
states, in the country, but the whole world. 65% of human trafficking victims are women or girls.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's when you think of the rights of women, in terms of the history of our country, right? Women had to fight hard, for the rights, their basic rights, and then just the disempowerment of women, and does that make them a target? Are you woman? Are you underage? Do you, like, what are some of the risk factors, right? When I think of, things, because being an educator, schools are places where children should be safe, but we should be on alert if a child may be the victim of that, right? And so what would then make them a target? What would make them vulnerable, right? It could be youth that may have a history of maltreatment. Maybe there was previous sexual abuse or low self-esteem, or, not getting a large amount of social support, that they could be at risk for trafficking, and like you said, if they're female, the most vulnerable of our society are children and women, right? And it looks like the data is showing that. And so we can't ignore those risk factors, but we have to empower society, our country, the nation, the world with maybe the stereotypes, right? Of who is human trafficked, and to guard that, protect it. And if the numbers are saying that it is targeting people under the age of 18, or like this case or story that you led with of someone who's 12 years old, we need to take note of that. If it's women, why is that? We need to take note of that and not take a blind eye, but to understand that this is a real problem and to try to overcome these risk factors.
I find it interesting. So there's 90% of female victims are used for sexual exploitation when they're trafficked. So I just, and going back to the 65%, I just want to do, so there's 8 billion people
Mm.
on Earth, right? So I just
Yeah,
did a little bit of math.
you did the numbers, broke it down.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 65% of 8 billion would be 5,200,000,000
Hmm.
women. This is only women. Women, over 5 billion women are used for human trafficking. And I just want to know your thoughts on that.
It's a problem. 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 And thank you for shedding the light and having this podcast to shed a light on this problem. Um, that it's not just something that society should, like I said before, keep a blind eye to. It's very real. It's happening today in your neighborhood, in your community. You know, um, you should want to take action and want to do something. It's education, it's awareness, and then being alert, you know, to um
To the risk.
things. Yeah, to the risk. Thank you. I was lost the word. I mean, because and the stereotypes, like you said, even though there's a minimal amount of men, according to the data, who are human trafficked, but for if you think of humanity, no one should be subject to it, man or woman, child, adult or child, you know.
And when you look at the races too, there is no common race or dominant race when it
Yeah,
comes to human trafficking. So
correct.
you can have, there's white. It's kind of like even with a little bit of unbalance, but it doesn't. It's more of picking off a weak, like picking victims or the
Most
weak of the pack.
vulnerable.
Yep.
Correct, correct, correct,
And,
correct.
and that brings me to my next point, which is
Mhm.
discussing the women's perspective about encounters and catcalling.
Oh,
Uh, and 80% of women have experienced sexual harassment in public places. And I just want to know your thoughts on getting like catcalled.
well,
If any,
catcalling. Well, this is just my personal opinion. Catcalling is not a compliment. I agree, that it is, a form of harassment. You know, it, it's not to recognize it or accept it, put some respect on my name, um, it's not a compliment, whether it's a whistle or a shout or a sexual comment, that someone makes when you're just walking into a store or you're walking by. You shouldn't be subject to that and put a little bit more respect, and that's for men or women. For women not to do that to men or men not to do it to women. Catcalling, in my opinion, is simply just not a compliment.
yep. And sometimes the catcalling can go dangerous. And I just want to show you a short story. And if anybody wants to check out the articles, once again, I'll link it in the description. But let me zoom in. But a young college student was killed by a man who catcalls that she tried to ignore. So I know some people watching might say, well, don't some of the women just ignore the dudes trying to pursue them, right?
Like it's flattery or something, like, and but see, that's the other part too, right? That, is it flattering, someone is taking notice of me, by whistling or saying, hey, whatever the comment is that they say or shout, that is flattering, but, you know um it could go left real fast, right? And to this story that you're sharing with me, is you said it looks like the New York Times, that went very wrong. Like it went, you know, very wrong. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, no, I just want to know your thoughts, and I want to give a personal story of one time back on East Carolina University when I attended there.
Mhm,
A female friend. I'm still friends with her to this day, but we
mhm,
were all going out, just
mhm,
going to a restaurant, blah blah blah, and a dude was trying to hit on her, right?
mhm,
And she didn't want to put herself in a compromised situation
mhm.
where this dude could go off on her like this in this case right here.
Correct.
So
Correct.
she would pretend that she was in a relationship with me just for the time being, just until he left, and then we can
Mhm.
just go on our business. I just want to know, and from a women's perspective, how dangerous this can be to just tell a dude, no, I don't want to give my number or catcalling in general.
Right. No, again, I go to the point, in my personal opinion, catcalling is not a compliment. And whether, doesn't matter, if someone is attractive or whatever, or just, whatever is appealing to the catcaller's eyes to, provoke them to want to say that they need to put a little respect on it for him or her, right? And it can catcalling absolutely um can get to the point of being dangerous. If a woman or a man, you know, needs to decide to defend themselves, that either they should be able to, decide, okay, do I need to defend myself? Do I need to ignore it? Do I need to say my no means no? Right? Um, because you don't want that to go, that catcalling to become something that then becomes an aggressive behavior, or something that someone will do to intimidate someone, and then, um, put that person in jeopardy, or they fear, for what's going on. But your no means no. Respect every individual, have respect on people, period, whether, like I said, man or woman. And it's not a compliment. I mean, if you like the way a person looks or presents themselves or something, there's a way to go about it. Um, and some people might say, well, I didn't mean anything by it or whatever, but a person should think before they do that, right? And people who hear that catcalling have to make it clear that it is not a compliment, right? For someone to do that, and that their no means no, and to keep moving, because you just don't want to put yourself in a place where it could um go in a different direction.
Yeah, but I just want to go on top of
I don't know,
that.
did I answer? Did I? I hope I would that made sense.
Yeah, I like what you said, and I feel like women shouldn't have to really like defend yourself. Like in my situation, my friend shouldn't have to pretend that she's in a relationship with one of her guy friends just because she's scared of the reaction she's going to get by rejecting someone. So
Yes, absolutely. She should not be, in that case with your friend, she should not, you know, have to worry about what the what that other person is going to feel. Her no means no. She didn't like it, and you know, the other person should have respect on that. Women in that scenario, women are more than just their looks, right? They have the right to be treated with respect, with dignity, when they're walking anywhere or going anywhere, you know.
Yep.
as with any man, you know, they have the right to be respected. And man, like that young lady, you know, has the right to, you know, she deserves to feel safe, right? And if again, and if the shoe was on the other foot, that young man would have the right, or he would, you know, deserves, you know, to feel safe. And his no means no. You know, it's just, like I said, my point, my personal opinion, that catcalls are in no way a compliment.
Which brings me to my next point of catcalling being bad, which can lead to human trafficking and modern, it can turn into modern day slavery, where an individual is exploited by others for personal or commercial gain, whether she's tricked, he or
Mm.
she, but mostly women are tricked or coerced into getting into that lifestyle.
Hmm. That's interesting. Had modern day slavery. Wow.
Yeah, and sometimes the length that these women could be in uh human trafficking cases can be a long time. For example, I'm not gonna read this whole thing again, but if you want to, you can check it out.
Hmm.
But this is the story of a human trafficking survivor.
Hmm.
She was subjected to abuse for over 20 years, and she was sold for sex when she was 4 years old as a child,
Wow.
and forced into a lifestyle and her whole story of getting out and all that. I just want your thoughts on modern day slavery and how bad it can be for someone so
Mm.
young.
Wow. You know, when your rights are taken away, and you know, if this story of this young lady, you know, at the age of 4, your life has, you know, your life hasn't even begun. You know, I'm saddened. My that is impactful to me to the core, you know. But you know, she's a survivor. This it looks I can't wait to get the link to this. To share her story, to tell her story. I think this is what the message that I think that you were trying to do with this podcast and putting a spotlight on the devastation of human trafficking and an awareness of it, that it really has, like a virus, right? Infected our society in a way that is that has impacted so many lives. And you know, to see the ills, it's like it 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 is revealing something, right?
Mm.
About what we need to address in our country, in our world. Just the respecting and the dignity of human life, and you know, to keep people safe, and a sense of security, and also to address, you know, we are a community, whether we're in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., um, uh, Chicago, New Jersey, Wyoming, wherever we are, right? Um, in another country, right? We are a community of people, and we should safeguard one another. But this is human trafficking is like an ill. Like this is, you know, something that we need to correct, and that unfortunately has lasting impacts. You know, and you know that we
Hope the change.
hope to change. And like, you know, how do we turn this around? It's through education, it is through awareness, it is through the strength of those survivors who want to tell their stories, and to so it doesn't happen to someone else, right? um
Yeah,
so
I like how you went into detail about going and striving for change. And that's kind of how I wanted to end off this podcast, talking about how can we prevent it or change the world or environment so this doesn't happen, so people aren't human trafficked.
Through education, through awareness, through recognizing ways that as individuals you can empower yourself by staying safe, maintaining your personal safety. Also, seek help. If you stranger danger, or if your spider senses are tingling, get help. Call the police, call a friend, call if it doesn't feel right, or try to make smart decisions so that you can reduce the chances of even becoming a victim. um the other part is, again, like you said, the survivors of human trafficking, and who are who is targeted. It's the most vulnerable of our situation, of our population. And if again, um to just educate, um
Yep.
create awareness, and be make decisions that will keep yourself safe in your environment for your own personal safety.
I think
I don't know.
we should also,
What do you think?
I think we should educate young men specifically, so
Mm,
it doesn't get to the point where women don't want to fear their life just from rejecting someone, or don't want to fear their life by going out to the grocery store, even in the morning, going out to the
yeah,
grocery store, you
yeah.
just going by yourself and going on your day.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And knowing how to interact socially with one another, right? And having that just a respect for one another. And no means no, and you keep moving, right?
Yep.
But there could be, and there just could be, and not no hurt feelings, right? Don't take it personally, but check yourself. I
It,
don't know.
it could also be mental
Um,
issues, maybe, with some
Correct.
guys to take it to that extent. Maybe it's mental or psychological.
It could absolutely, mental health needs is a huge part, right? That human trafficking victims experience. That it could be, from um, the emotional health consequences could be like the feelings of guilt, right, from this horrible situation that happened to them, lead to depression, substance abuse, right, alcohol or drugs, right, eating disorders. It can all impact, and you have to deal with those mental health, and for us as as a society to take away the stigma of mental health, right? If you have a toothache, you go to the dentist, right? um it's the same thing with mental health, that you need to address some of those underlying issues that you might be facing as an individual, as a human, as a person, and seek mental health treatment. Seek help. Go to a counselor, talk about that so that you can be a productive member in society, and, really um, help each other.
Yeah.
Be a good steward. Be a good steward of your fellow man or woman.
And for the women, I think women, for the time being, until we can get the whole social aspect together, you should really seek out sources like Morgan State. We have a ability to call a shuttle if you feel in danger or
Yeah,
something of the sort. So
yeah.
use those resources to get yourself out of a sticky situation or bad
Abs-
situation.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, I remember, many moons ago, being a college student, that maintaining my personal safety, right, knowing my environment, carrying my cell phone, knowing who the campus police, how to get in touch with the campus police, walking in lighted areas, knowing where I can go to get help if I'm confronted by, a certain situation. Like I said at the time, it was those blue light emergency phone stations, right? Um,
Hmm.
Definitely not to walk alone, if it was a certain time or whatever. Walk with a friend, like you said, take the shuttle, those are all the things I try to do, to keep myself safe. And that individuals, whether, on campus at Morgan State University, man or woman, always be guard, mindful of your personal safety in public areas and use those resources that are available.
Yep, and I hope this podcast uh helped to just shed a little bit of light on the situation, and people will take initiative after seeing this podcast or click on the link of some of the stories. And I just wanted to thank you, Mrs. Terrell-Walker, for joining me on this podcast and having this discussion.
Oh, you're welcome, Brandon. You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. And if anybody, for the viewers that are watching, if anybody wants to check out any of the links or the articles or the data that I use for this podcast, it will be in the link in the description below. And I would like to thank my Morgan State professor, Dr. Lindsay, in my Facts 342 class for the opportunity to shed light on this issue once again. All right, thank you for watching, everybody.